Hello and welcome to the making of the thumbnail for Spoink, our super bouncy piggy Pokemon. This one, the thumbnail conceptually, I thought was pretty fun. I made the decision to not directly show the tail because in the episode it has some implications of what it's being used for, so I wanted to try to keep that part more in the imagination. But I definitely wanted the sense of motion, so I thought it would be hilarious to have the just upward motion of the boobs as the piggy is falling down. It was also kind of amusing that the pink accidentally made this look a bit more like a normal pig, because there's not, to my personal knowledge, that many animals that are naturally depicted as pink. Because, like, off the top of my head, I can think, like, pig, flamingo, and pink poodle moth. Um, I'm sure there's a couple others if I really thought about it, but I'm a little tired. But the ditto color accidentally making it look a bit more like a normal pig I thought was pretty entertaining. Thankfully, I do still have the pearl to get the idea across. So, starting with the outline, started with the I always start with the eyes. I always like starting with the eyes and then working on the outline and working on the bra bit. Throughout this episode, I get a little layer confused. I get like lost in the layers a bit, so I have to go back and forth. Overall, even with the confusion, this episode or this thumbnail only took me about 45 minutes to make. So, all in all, not that bad. I still feel like I'm improving, especially since with this one I did a lot of experimenting, which you'll see a bit later down, mostly when I go into the background. Yeah, so like right there, I started making the bra on, I believe, the outline layer, and so I backtracked and made some extra layers to keep the bra separate, because I try my best to keep everything as separate as possible so that I can play with effects more easily, I can fix things a lot easier, so it's not a domino effect of if I mess up one little area, it doesn't cascade into, well, I have to fix this whole quadrant of the image now. So, coloring the white and then doing the initial. Eventually, I'll do the swish swish of the Pokeball design, which, for those that are new or aren't aware, the mascot's Pokeball bra is loosely based on the Dream Ball. Not exactly replica, but inspired by. So I went with teeny tiny mouth because Spoink doesn't really show having a mouth. I believe it has a tiny mouth if you feed him in some games. I never really used Spoink, not gonna lie. It's never my first choice. I'm more of a bug trainer, so I am not intimately aware with their anatomy, but decided to keep it small. So the problem with the select tool sometimes, because I used it to keep my broad strokes within the bra area, but the outline tool tends to leave that very jagged, pixelated look to it, so I have to go in and correct it. I'm taking a break from tweaking it and I'm coloring in the body so I can get a better sense of how much I need to smooth out on it. Again, the amusement that I ended up with a little pink piggy. I decided to go with smaller hands, because for as thick a potato as Spoink is, its actual features, so its ears, its little feetses and everything, are actually very small. So I decided to shave the hands down a bit, but I still got the big pork belly. So going on to the pearl, I do have some experience with gem work by this point. I think Miss Magius especially helped give me some tips. I usually go by the cues of the original design itself, but for the pearl, I softened it more. You see me here trying to decide how to go about it, because again, the select tool issue. But the circle select tool is fairly fine. going with the reverse gradient circular, so the pink hue comes out a bit more and it looks more shiny around it. And then super, super soft radius for the round shine on it. So it has more of a opaque, smooth feel to it. So yeah, now I'm going back in and cleaning up that bra finally. Just going with an eraser tool and a soft gradient and just cleaning it up on that on that layer, like I said. The layers are so helpful. The program I'm using, by the way, is paint.net. I have used it pretty much since high school. It's very much a case of I'm just familiar with it and it's free, so I'm going to use with what I got. So with the background, I had tried to use, because I always use the Pokemon's original colors for the gradient, or for the background, and I tried to do a gradient, but the pink and gray, when I was doing the gradient, it was hard to tell the difference between the colors at all. So once again, I went with this sort of like 90s, 80s style advertisement look and giving it the spiral, since again I had cut out the tail, but it's kind of an important part, so I wanted to at least represent the springiness in some way. So I have the nice spiral in the background for the design, and then was messing around with gradients a bit. So with showing motion in the Spoink, you'll see I merged the layers a lot there, and I'm trying to play with the motion blur now. I decided to copy paste the whole Spoink and layer them on top of each other, and then with the back layer, that's the one I started blurring, because when I tried to blur it initially, it was too blurry and I felt like it was hard to tell what the heck you're looking at, but I still wanted those motion lines without actually drawing just straight up lines on them. So I put a layer behind and then used the motion blur going straight down, because I feel like Spoink would be going into the downward motion at this point. At that still. So I tried to, I kept the blur like kind of mid-ranged. I also played with the opacity, opacity? How do you pronounce that? How opaque it is. And I wanted to keep it fairly opaque so that you can still see there's some blur, but not so solid that it just doesn't quite translate into motion. So going with the Slime Girl shine, again, my favorite part. It's kind of funny looking at it with the blushy cheek marks and it all in the nose. It almost looks like it has sunscreen before I go blending them in. So yeah, doing the more translucent eraser, blending everything in. Very, very round Pokemon, very pudgy, so lots of shine everywhere. Slapping the good old DDD logo. I may or may not change the colors on that at some point. Because I have a new sub-series, once again, for DDD in the works. And a new character might get introduced, so the color scheme might be a bit different. I don't know if I would do the logo overall, or if it would just be for that sub-series specifically. And then, yeah, I slapped the episode number on, went with as curly and soft a text face as I could find. And that is our little bouncy piggy that bounced all the way into your heart, I hope. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode. I would love to see you on either my Patreon or my Subscribestar, where you can hear the full version of this episode. You can have early access to these videos and a lot more behind the scenes content and other content in general, even a sneak peek of this art now and again, and polls in which you can vote on who the next Pokemon is going to be. So until then, I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.